At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, the podcast where we take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, the paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knutson.
And I'm Mike Brown. It's time to dim the lights and settle in. This time we're climbing into bed. Come along with us on this week's adventure. And I say that because we're going to talk to Robert Waggoner, who is one of the world's foremost experts on lucid dreaming, one of my favorite topics. Hooray.
And a new topic for me.
Yeah.
So I get to sit in the passenger seat a little bit here.
Yes, you do. And I am so excited to talk to Robert. I've read both his books, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, and Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple Tips and Techniques for Insight, Creativity, and Personal Growth. He is such a fantastic, interesting dude, and we are excited to have him on the show.
Oh, are we ever? I am really excited to dig into this and learn because my knowledge about lucid dreaming is somewhat limited. And I mean, as much as I have delved into all the areas and subject matters around it, this is one that is new for me. So I say we tap into this and let's get going.
Okie dokie.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out, it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Well, how exciting is this? Robert, thank you so much for coming to do this and joining us today because we're both fans and we're really excited to have you and to delve into this. So thank you for coming this afternoon.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is a subject Mike actually has introduced me to a little bit more than usual. I mean, I've been in parapsychology for a really long time, and this is one of those avenues I just haven't delved into as much. But Mike, thankfully, has done a lot. So, Mike, did you want to start?
We're here to talk to Robert Waggoner, a pioneer in the field of lucid dreaming and past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. With over 1,000 dreams under his belt, Robert has written extensively on the subject, including his acclaimed book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. And this is the one that got me started. He's here to share with us the incredible insights and experiences he's gained from navigating the subconscious and how lucid dreaming can unlock profound personal growth. So let's dive into the magical world of lucid dreaming with Robert Waggoner. Let's get right into this. So Robert, what I would like to know is, what is a lucid dream as defined by Robert Waggoner.
So a lucid dream is any dream in which you realize inside the dream that it's a dream. You know it's a dream. And so oftentimes in the dream, you'll see something impossible and you go, wait a second, how can that be? And then you'll realize I'm dreaming this. That's how that's come to be. So it's an incredible state when you realize that you exist within a dream.
And your journey with lucid dreaming began as a kid, correct? You were 11?
Right. My very first lucid dream just happened spontaneously. So I was probably 10 or 11, found myself at the public library. I was sitting there looking at the books when all of a sudden I noticed a little Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur walking through the book stacks. And even though I was 10 or 11, I thought, wait a second, dinosaurs are extinct. How can this be? And then I realized, this must be a dream. I'm dreaming this. And then I told myself, well, if this is a dream, I can wake up. I told myself to wake up, and I woke up.
There you go.
So that was my very first spontaneous lucid dream after seeing a dinosaur.
And so that obviously is what sparked your interest in lucid dreaming in later life, or?
Right. Well, it's interesting. I was in high school 6-7 years later, and I was reading a book by Carlos Castaneda called Journey to Ixtlan.
Yeah.
And in this book, Carlos Castaneda, the anthropology graduate student, had met a shaman, Don Juan. And in this book, Don Juan says you can find your hands in the dream state and realize you're dreaming. And I thought, well, wait a second, where's the technique? How do you do this? How does that work? Is it even possible? Is it even possible? So I knew about the power of suggestion. And so each night before I went to sleep, I developed a technique to suggest that I would see my hands and realize I was dreaming. And on the third night of practicing this technique, I became lucidly aware. I saw my hands and thought, oh, my hands, this is a dream.
Are there other ways to realize that you're dreaming? I think they're called dream signs.
Right. There's probably 20 different lucid dreaming techniques when you get right down to it.
Wow.
For some people, and especially in the early years, it was simply the power of suggestion. Like telling yourself, tonight in my dreams, I'll be much more observant. And when I notice anything strange, I'll realize I'm dreaming. But then sometimes it's noticing dream signs. Like for many people, a dream sign, they might see a deceased relative or a deceased loved one or a deceased pet. And they go, wait a second, how can grandma be here? Grandma passed away 10 years ago. And so oftentimes those dream signs are surprising things that occur in the dream state that can clue you into the fact that, oh, this is a dream.
All of them are so interesting. And what I loved about your approach when I started to delve into it, I think I was one of those people that saw that as almost the ceiling to what lucid dreaming was. And what your work really did for me was open my mind to exactly how far this can go and what this is, not only as a psychological tool, but as a spiritual tool. And that was where you really hooked me because I'm so... Yeah, I'm so interested in this idea that, we're delving into communication with other beings, with our own subconscious, like all of these different things. And you talked about this 5 stages of lucid dreaming as a developmental path, which I thought was so cool. The initial awareness, experimentation, engage with the subconscious, healing and growth, and this transpersonal exploration. Do you want to talk a little bit about the 5 stages and what that means for people? Because it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
For many of us, lucid dreaming initially is just very fun. You become aware you're dreaming. Now you can go flying. You can dance on the ceiling. You can talk to dream figures. You can just do extraordinary things and have a lot of fun at the same time. But in some ways, that's a little bit of a trap because you can go on for 200-300 dreams, lucid dreams, and do nothing but have fun. But I taught myself how to lucid dream in 1975. The scientific evidence came out in 1980, 1981. And then it was in 1985, I was part of this Lucid Dream Explorers group that every month we would try to achieve something in a lucid dream. We'd all have a goal to achieve. And one of those months, I think it was April of 1985, it was to become lucid and find out what the dream figures represent. And so I became lucid. I followed a woman into an office building. And now here's 3 women in an office and a gentleman dressed up in a 3-piece suit. And so knowing it's a dream, I remembered my goal is to find out what a dream figure represents. And so I walked up to this gentleman in the 3-piece suit and I said, "Excuse me, what do you represent?" And what was interesting, instead of this gentleman responding, a voice from above him boomed out a partial response. And I heard this voice say, "The acquired characteristics." And so I looked up and said, "The acquired characteristics of what?" And then it's like it had to think. And then it replied, "The acquired characteristics of the happy giver."
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So when I woke up, first I thought how strange it is that this non-visible voice responded instead of the dream figure responding, which is what I expected. And then I started to think, the happy giver. And I remembered the day earlier, I had been on a business trip in Chicago. And one woman I met happened to run a nonprofit. And she told me the only reason people gave to her nonprofit was to get their name in the annual bulletin of donors. And as I looked at her and heard her say this, I thought, oh, the Lord loves a happy giver, because she was such an unhappy receiver. You know, and it was funny in one respect that this dream figure represented the happy giver. So he's this nice gentleman in the 3-piece suit and all. But on the other hand, there was the other aspect of it, this awareness behind the dream. And that's what really got my lucid dreaming life exploring a new path.
Oh,
the acquired characteristics.
It's so cool because I think that message of being the giver and the receiver, I mean, not only does it translate into, I think what we've learned, Mike, with parapsychology and the idea of being open to receiving messages and being open to, and that sense of surrender to what might be coming through, but also being open to the various forms that it takes. Like in your books, you're talking about different messages that might not come through the obvious booming voice, but in symbolism and things like that. Can you talk about a little bit about that and maybe how some of these things might come through that people are missing?
Right. So in the history of dreaming, there's a lot of anecdotes about people who receive things in the dream state. Like the music to Yesterday came to Paul McCartney in a dream. And he jumped up out of bed and ran to the piano and began to play the music. And he would ask all of his friends, whose music is this? And they would say, it's yours. You're playing it. We've never heard this music before. Mm-hmm. And so there's music, there's Nobel Prizes that have come to people by virtue of things they've figured out in the dream state. And so this connection with creativity is very much alive just in regular dreaming. But here's the special thing about lucid dreaming. When you're lucidly aware, you know it's a dream. And if you stop in that moment and recall your goal, you can go in search of creativity. Mm-hmm. So once I was giving a talk and a gentleman mentioned that he was a fiction writer. And whenever he got stuck writing his fiction novels, he'd try to have a lucid dream. And in the lucid dream, he would call on the novel characters to appear and ask them, how do we make this novel better? Or what's wrong with this novel? And he said he was stunned at the great ideas that his novel characters would give him within the lucid dream. Other people have become lucidly aware. They've called out to hear the most incredible music they could ever create. And suddenly they begin to hear just profound music. There's a book by Stephen LaBerge, who was one of the main scientific researchers on lucid dreaming. And in there, he shared an example of a gentleman who was a programmer. And whenever he got stuck with a programming code problem, he would try to have a lucid dream. And in the lucid dream, he'd call on Albert Einstein to appear. And suddenly, he and Einstein would sit at the table and figure out the coding problem. And once they got it figured out, he'd tell Einstein to go away so he could memorize it. So when he woke up, he could take care of things. And he said 99% of the time it all worked out. But that's what I began to see, is that in lucid dreams, you can access creativity. And when you understand that there's an inner awareness, that there's something behind the dream, then you can reach out to it with questions and oftentimes get verbal responses, sometimes get symbolic responses, and sometimes it can be how fascinating it is. I mean, sometimes it's almost like getting a little video clip of something. So it's truly amazing to be able to use lucid dreaming to access inner creativity.
I do it all the time.
Same.
It's how I operate. I use my dreams to work out a lot of different things. I'm new to the lucid dreaming game. I've only recently begun to have a few after months of journaling and that kind of thing. But what advice would you give to beginners who are struggling to achieve their first lucid dream?
Sometimes it can take a little bit of time. Some people have immediate success and within a week or two, they're off and running with lucid dreams. But the first thing I would say is play with it. Have fun with it. Like for me, oftentimes I think of dreaming is to sleeping as imagination is to waking.
Oh, I love that.
In my early years when I was playing around with lucid dreaming, there wasn't anyone to talk to about it because the scientific evidence hadn't emerged yet. Sometimes I would imagine myself doing something like standing on the hood of a car as I'm driving down the highway at 60 miles an hour. So this is during the waking state. I would just imagine that. And then within a night or two, I would find myself standing on the hood of a car as I'm zooming down the highway. And I go, what's going on here? And then I realize, oh, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. I think one thing that people could really do is just play with the concept of lucid dreaming. Because when you have fun with it, when you play with it, it's easier to do. And a lot of people, it's just another task they have to complete that day. Oh, I completed 10 tasks during the day. Oh, now I have this one task tonight. It just becomes a work thing, and a work thing you're not going to continue with. So whatever method you use, play with it, have fun with it, and see where it takes you.
I want to talk a little bit more, I guess, of this awareness, because I think this is something that people really need to get. I know I started out with a very basic understanding of lucid dreaming in the sense that we could interact with things going on in the dream and so on and so forth. But I find the awareness in these beings that we're meeting in this state, to me, is really interesting, because in other areas of parapsychology specifically, the same techniques I've observed in other areas are present here in the lucid dreaming. And I was just telling Mike this before we got online with you, where I've had many instances in my waking life of these types of messages being delivered on different levels, and whether it be auditory stuff or synchronicities or symbolism and all of these things. And I find it very interesting that it's crossing over into this lucid dream arena, which makes me think that there's sort of consciousness within the things that you're connecting with in these lucid dreams, that it might not just be our subconscious playing around, that maybe there's something more that we're connecting with, whether it be like a higher intelligence or something like that.
Right. By my 20th year of lucid dreaming, I came to realize that we all exist within an interconnected oneness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That we exist within this awareness, and that fundamentally everything that exists has awareness. Even things that we would consider not alive actually have awareness. In my book, I tell a story of once my wife and I were taking a rafting trip down the Grand Canyon. So you go on a 7-day rafting trip down the Grand Canyon. You sleep out under the stars each night. And I have to tell you that getting back into nature like that, without cell phones or anything, you almost become, in some regards, a more simple person in terms of not having technology with you. But suddenly your dream life just sparks. It was truly amazing to see my dreaming and my lucid dreaming just increase as we go on this trip. But about halfway down the rafting trip, you end up at Havasu Canyon, and that's where people hike up the creek, and there's a beautiful waterfall about 1.5 miles down and all that. My wife and I, we were with the last person on our crew, an elderly woman, and we were helping her along the trail. And finally, we got down to the creek, and we were just laying in this beautiful creek water because it was August in Arizona, and it was probably 100 degrees outside. And so now we're in this beautiful crystal water, just enjoying it. And so I got into this meditative state, and I always do this in lucid dreams. I ask an open-ended question. So in this meditative state, in the waking world, in this creek, I reached out to the canyon, and I asked the canyon, so canyon, what do you have to say to me? And suddenly, just like you and I are talking today, I heard very clearly, get out while you still can. And I thought, whoa, where did this come from? And I looked around, am I sitting on an aquatic plant? Am I hurting something? Why did I hear that? And I heard it very clearly. And then I thought, oh, it's just my imagination, just whatever. So I got back into a meditative state, and 3 or 4 minutes later, I reached out to the canyon again. I said, so canyon, what do you have to say to me? And this time I heard with greater urgency, get out while you still can. And I stood up in the creek, and I yelled over to my wife and the other people that were laying there in the creek. I said, we have to leave. And they go, why? This is heaven. And I said, there's something wrong here. We got to get out of here. And then suddenly I looked up, and you're kind of in a bit of a slot canyon. And suddenly I could see the black outline of a thunderstorm. And I knew that there in the Grand Canyon, there's no soil to hold water. So if there's ever a rainstorm, it can lead to flash floods in these narrow canyons. And so as soon as I pointed that out to everyone, they said, oh, yeah, we got to get out of here. And then the crew was running up the trail screaming, get back to the boat. There's going to be a flash flood. And I believe in this creek, almost every year someone passes away due to a flash flood.
And the crazy thing is, after you guys pick up and leave, there is an actual flash flood. So there's got to be something that we're connecting to.
So again, I see the world, I don't really think of it as panpsychism like some people would say, but it's more that we exist within a oneness, and within that oneness, everything has awareness. And it's interesting, though, like you were saying a moment ago, that when you take something that you learn in the lucid dreaming state, that there's an awareness behind the dream, and begin to realize, in the waking world, that there's fundamentally everything's aware. And when you get your mind into the right state, you can reach out to it and sometimes get a very helpful response.
Well, I love the connection with nature. I mean, Mike and I are both huge animal lovers and nature lovers, and our babies are our animals. Yeah. And they're so important to us. And I've always seen them as such huge teachers. There's just such a beautiful awareness with nature, and we tend to neglect it. And I think this is so interesting to be able to hear you talk about receiving these messages from the awareness that is nature. And not only that, but something that seems to be still offering protection, still offering the advice of, get out of here. There's something coming, which speaks to a couple of things. I mean, not only that there's that awareness that you're talking about, but also a far greater awareness than what we have as people. And I think that's just a really, really interesting point, that this whole process seems to mirror a lot of teachings from the First Nations people and things like that. Have you found that as well, that there's sort of a baseline with this that really echoes into various cultures and traditions?
Well, it is interesting. So lucid dreaming has a scientific history of the last 45 years, basically since 1980 is the scientific history of lucid dreaming. But for about 2,000 years before that, in Buddhism, they had Buddhist dream yoga. Mm-hmm. And so basically they use lucid dreaming along with the philosophy of Buddhism to explore the nature of reality. And I discovered that in Taoism, there's a lucid dreaming tradition. The way I discovered that, one night I became lucidly aware, and there were these two guys in black silk robes looking at me, and they were both Asian men. One was older and one was younger. They looked at me and I looked at them, and I thought, what are they doing? Because I could tell that they were consciously aware in that space, as was I. And in the morning, I wrote to one of my friends who's been to China quite a bit, and I said, who wears black robes? And he said, oh, those are Taoist priests. And I said, Taoist priests would practice lucid dreaming? And he goes, oh, yes, there's secret societies within Taoism that would do that practice, but they would never tell the ordinary person something like that.
Wow.
And then you get into other shamanic or native traditions. I heard from someone, an anthropologist, that the Blackfeet Nation also has a society that uses lucid dreaming as part of their explorations. So in a lot of these shamanic traditions around the world for many thousands of years, they've used lucid dreaming to explore things. One time I was really surprised when I became lucidly aware when our little new cat talked to me in a lucid dream.
Oh, neat.
It was the most hilarious thing. So we'd gotten this little Abyssinian cat, and I worked out of home. And the problem with the cat was I'd be on the computer typing up business letters or on the phone talking to clients. And what would the cat do? It would jump on the computer and walk around. Or when I was on the phone with a client, it would go, "Row!" And so what I began to do, as soon as the cat would come into my office, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd just throw it out and shut the door. And then when I'd open the door at noontime, there the cat would be waiting for me, and we'd go down and have lunch. So this went on for about 2 weeks. And then one night, I'm in the dream, and up walks this little cat. And it looks at me and it says in a cat voice, would you play with me?
Oh, wow.
And I was blown away. I thought, you little talking cat, this is the craziest thing ever. So this is what I did, because again, I want people to rationally explore these experiences and just not discount them. So the next day, I talked to the cat as if it was a human. And I said, look, we're going to play a game. How about that? So there's this game called tag. I reach over and touch you and you're it. Then you have to chase me and touch me and then I'm it. Then I chase you and that's how you play tag. And all of a sudden I said, okay, boom, tag, you're it. And I went running down the stairs, down to the basement, and the cat was chasing me the entire way. And then with its little paw, it tagged me on the ankle, and it turned around and shot back up the stairs and went running all over. We ran around for 10 minutes playing tag. It was the craziest thing ever. And after that, I never treated that cat in the same way. I realized that it understood, maybe not, in the same exact way, but basically we were in communication. Another time, I was in the dream state and I saw the cat and it said to me, well, first I need to explain that this cat never lets you hold it. You try to pick it up and it would scratch you until you let it down. Yeah. And this had gone on for about 2 years. You could never really hold the cat. It would scratch you and you'd put it down. So I became aware within a dream and there was the cat. And it looked over at me and it said, would you like to see how I want to be held?
Oh,
cool.
And I said, sure, show me. And it told me to put my hand out parallel with the ground. And then it basically put its little haunch in my hand and its front legs up by my elbow. And that's how it wanted to be held. I woke up from that dream and I stepped out into the hallway from the bedroom. And there was the cat sitting exactly where it was in this dream experience. And so suddenly I put out my hand exactly like it had instructed me in the dream. And it stood, it got right into that position and let me hold it. I walked down to the breakfast table, and when my wife saw it, she just flipped out. She said, how did you get that cat to allow you to hold it? And I said, it came in a dream and told me how it wanted to be held. Mm-hmm. But after that, I realized, that a lot of these ancient shamanic ideas of interacting with animals, interacting with plants, interacting with geographical features and more, there's more to it than what people would normally want to get into. And if you're thoughtful and in the dream state, sometimes you might interact with your pet or some other animal.
That is such valuable information. That may be in the top 3 things that I've heard on this show. That is the most valuable piece of information. Really, it's so interesting to me because I have a little python at home and he's turning 21 this year.
Oh wow.
And and he is my little boy. He is so incredibly intelligent. And I had a very interesting experience, not so much with the dreaming, but this very much to me overlaps, where I've got a group here that we do a lot of Ouija sessions here, and we've ended up connecting with some incredible beings. And the one question, he is often with us during these sessions, and he at one point we had asked, how much does Galen understand? And I was expecting, I don't know, 50% or something like that. And they came back with 100%. And it blew my mind a little bit. But it changed how I spoke to him, just exactly the same way that you were just talking about your cat. It changed how I spoke to him. And ever since that point in time, it has completely changed our dynamic. And so I'm not repeating things. I'm not lessening what I'm saying to him. It has just completely revolutionized our relationship. And I think, what you're saying, using that as that dream technique, it makes me not only reflect on that, but it also makes me reflect on the idea of how are these animals using this already? They seem to already know it. So how are they using this already and are kind of waiting maybe for us to tap in and connect, and we're just not doing it.
I think this will be another one of those areas that begin to get explored as more people begin to have the experiences. When I get together with other experienced lucid dreamers, a lot of experienced lucid dreamers have had some pet person interaction in the lucid dream state and really had their mind blown, but it takes a while for most people to even allow the possibility for that to occur. And so I think a lot of it is we filter out experiences that we can't accept. And for some people that happens. When our cats got older, I just put them out on the front porch and I put little collars on them so they wouldn't go running all over the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. But I told him, I said, whenever you want to come into the house, just look at the front door and send me the image and I'll come down and get you. And I would be up there typing a business letter. And then over here on my left side, I'd see this sudden flash of the front door and I'd run down there. And normally both of them were looking at the front door, exactly, like I'd instructed them to, tell me when they want to come inside. I remember one other time, our first cat, Penny, had passed away, but we still had Nickel, and my wife and I were on a vacation, and we'd left Nickel with our niece, and I showed the niece where all the cat food is and all that kind of stuff, because Nickel, his big thing was eating. He just loved to eat. So it's about 3 days later, and we're down in Florida, and that night I see Nickel, and what is he saying? I need food. I need food. I need food. He just kept repeating the I need food. And so the next morning, I called up my niece and I said, Nickel came to me in a dream and told me he needs food. So what is going on? And she says, it's so weird. I put out the food, but he won't eat it. And I don't know what to do. He just cries all the time. And so finally I told her, I said, you got to open up a can of tuna or something and make it a little bit more interesting or something. Right. Because Nickel searched through the dream space to find me and tell me, what a negative experience he's having without us there. So anyway, again, I do think at some point people will come to understand this kind of cross communication that occurs. But I think everything communicates, because fundamentally, at a very profound level, everything is interconnected and it's all part of a oneness, and that in some regards basically fundamentally explains how things communicate, even though they're not similar and apparently separate and all that kind of stuff. It's just baked into the cake, so to speak.
Animals are one thing you can communicate with in dreams. Very recently, my father passed away just over a month ago.
Oh, gosh.
And 3 weeks afterward, I received a phone call in my dream. And it was my dad calling me in my dream. And we had this conversation, and I was like, what's going on? And he sounded strong and healthy and the old dad, not the one from right before he passed away. And I said, Dad, aren't you dead? Didn't you pass away? And he said to me, "No, Michael, I didn't die. I didn't die." And I wanted to argue with him. And I said, "Is Mom around? Can I talk to Mom?" And he said, "She's not here.
Yeah.
She's not here." That's when I realized I was dreaming, and I woke myself up because I want to write this dream down. And it didn't occur to me immediately what he was telling me in the dream. And what I realized since, after talking to Morgan and a few other friends about it, as I'm speaking, saying what Dad said, he was telling me the truth. He did not die.
Yep.
The energy that was my father, the soul, or whatever it is still kicking around. Have you heard of experiences like this? And can you talk about that a little bit?
In my first book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, I have an entire chapter on interacting with deceased dream figures while you're having a lucid dream. I mean, it's a dream. I kind of have a few rules first, because sometimes, especially if the passing is recent, someone might become lucidly aware when they see the deceased loved one. But sometimes it's a symbol. It's a projection of their grief or their memories or longing or however you want to put it. But sometimes it might be something else, like you say, and very much after death spiritual encounter. So I remember when my father passed away, I decided I'd wait a few months, and then in my next lucid dream, I would try to find him in the lucid dream state. And so about 3 months later, I became lucid. I remember I wanted to interact with my deceased father, and it was interesting. All the dream figures told me not to do it. They told me the time wasn't right yet. And because they were in such unanimous insistence that it wasn't the right time yet, I thought in the lucid dream, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe I should wait until my dad wants to come visit me instead of barging in on him and whatever he's involved in. And so right after that, I decided to make all those dream figures tell me the meaning of all the dream symbolism in the dream at that moment. And it was so hilarious to point to everything and have them tell me what symbolically it represented. So I woke up from that lucid dream and I thought, okay, I'll just wait until my father wants to come to me. It's probably 2 years later, I see this ladder, a tall ladder. Coming down the ladder is my dad. And so I immediately become lucid because I realized Dad's been dead a few years now. But then I started to laugh because he had such a bad haircut. I thought, this poor guy cannot even get a good haircut in the after-death experience. But then I thought, well, wait a second. Is this my dad as a spiritual being, or is this my dad as just a dream symbol, a projection of my mind? And so when he got down the ladder, we greeted each other. I was lucidly aware. And so I decided to ask him questions. And my first question was, hey, Dad, you're from the land of the dead. When do you think Mom's going to pass away? And he looked at me and he said, oh, probably in 2 to 6 years. I said, of what? And he said, a heart condition. And that really surprised me because my mom was 10 years younger and never had any heart problems. And then I asked him one more question and he answered. And then he told me to please be quiet because he came to tell me things and he wanted me to listen. And for about the next 10 minutes, he went on and told me things about the family and things that he thought were likely to happen and to prepare for. It was really a powerful lucid dream. So I woke up and what was interesting, 23 months later, almost 2 years later, my mom went to the hospital and almost passed away of a heart issue. And then about 3 years after that, she went back to the hospital because she'd been taking some prescribed medicine that later they realized was actually harming people's hearts. But she made it through that 2 to 6 year period and went on to live a good life. So it's interesting. In some of these lucid dream experiences, people actually get information that later they can validate. I recall one gentleman told me that his parents had broke up when he was a little kid, got divorced, and so he was kind of upset about that. But then when he was in high school, his mom got cancer and passed away. Mm-hmm. And so after that, he was just kind of a disheartened person. And he said to kind of express his rage at the world, he became a bouncer at a bar.
Oh, wow.
And that was his life thing. He was just going to be a bouncer and beat up people at 2 a.m. who wouldn't leave the bar. And he said one morning he went home and he fell asleep and suddenly his mom appeared. And he realized, oh, this is a lucid dream because, my mom passed away. And the mom looked at him and said, I want you to know that I have left a bunch of boxes for you with our old friends, the blah, blah, blahs. And so you have to call them up and get these things that I saved for you. And he was really blown away by that idea. And so he wakes up from the lucid dream, and he's in a large town out in the western U.S. And he looked up these people and found their phone number, gave them a call. And they said, oh, my God, we've been looking for you for 3 years now. Your mom left all these boxes for you, and we've been wanting you to have them.
Wow.
And he said that experience stopped him dead in his tracks. He decided that if his mom could come to him in the dream state, give him information that he had no knowledge about, then obviously there is something to life other than just, beating up drunks at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so he went to community college, got into the tech world, started his own tech businesses, and did very well for himself. But again, this issue of deceased dream figures, they're kind of a special category in lucid dreaming, because when you see them, you think, wait a second, how can this be? They passed away. And often at that moment, that's when you realize, oh, I'm dreaming this. That's how this can be.
This really strikes me as an extension, or maybe a different category of channeling, is where this is how it feels to me a little bit, because and maybe it's drawing on some of the same things. I mean, here, trance channelers will go into meditation. People that do meditate often will receive these messages, or people that are doing things like remote viewing and whatnot, that are kind of going into these deeper mind states that are receiving this information. And it's like, to me, there's just there is a undeniable crossover to some degree as to what's going on. What studies are being done right now? I mean, we've talked loosely a little bit about some of the science behind this, but what are some of the more profound studies that have stuck out to you that have really given this a new light on a more academic level?
There's been some wonderful studies of what the brain looks like, or the neurophysiology of lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
Because normally what happens, people signal with their eyes that they're lucidly aware within the dream, and then they can perform experiments. And so a lot of times they can see, okay, what does the brain look like during that period that they were signaling that they were lucidly aware? So that's interesting. One study that I really enjoyed was one of German school children. So this researcher, she's a really heavy neurophysiologist with just tons of research paper. But she wanted to know, when does lucid dreaming begin in the natural population? And so she interacted with 694 German school children, ages 6 to 19, and basically asked all of them, have you ever realized within a dream that you're dreaming and knew it was a dream? And of that, she found 51% could report a lucid dream. But the thing that surprised me was this. I think more than 25% of the 8-year-olds had already had a lucid dream. And she was blown away by that. But we're really not in a dream culture that talks much about dreaming, let alone lucid dreaming. Yeah. And so it was really interesting to see these young people had already had lucid dreams. And she also mentioned how they obviously had learned to manipulate within that dream space because they did things that experienced lucid dreamers did without any education in it, without watching any videos or doing any practices. So what I would say is one thing from that study that I think is really important for people to realize: lucid dreaming is natural, happens spontaneously, but a lot of us are just so involved in our waking life or in our cell phone or whatever that we get disconnected from our dream life and begin to ignore lucid dreams, or just don't even remember them at all. But when you go on from there, there's other studies, of course, in lucid dreaming, that there's some that show that a lucid dream event affects the physical body. Okay, so like Stephen LaBerge did a study. He had people in the sleep lab, told them, signal with your eyes, move your eyes left to right 8 times when you're lucidly aware, so we know you're aware within the dream state there. And then I want you to make a fist by clenching your fist in a left-right pattern. The left hand, clench it, the right hand, clench it, left hand, clench it. And he had these measurements or these measuring devices around the forearms, and he could see a left-right muscle movement appear during the lucid dream. Mm-hmm. So what it showed was that the physical body was actually being affected by the lucid dreams. Now, the beautiful thing is you can take that one step further. Can you use lucid dreaming to heal the physical body? And in my first book, I have an entire chapter of people who have used lucid dreaming to heal themselves of physical ailments. And sometimes these are things that the doctors couldn't cure.
I have tinnitus, for example.
For like tinnitus, one woman, she was a DJ in London and developed tinnitus. And she said it was driving her crazy. She just couldn't stand it. And she had tried all the doctor ideas, none of that worked. All the home remedies, none of that worked. And finally, in a lucid dream, she had read my book and seen how people had approached this, but she approached it in a lucid dream. And she said when she woke up, no more tinnitus. And she said she was jumping on her bed, jumping on the couch, just going crazy. But again, it's interesting to see that the body can get affected within the lucid dream state. And so then these anecdotal accounts of physical healing in the lucid dream state seem to have credence. And also there's examples in the scientific literature of people using lucid dreaming to end recurring nightmares from PTSD. And so a lot of people who were in the military get PTSD, who are involved in conflict, or just people have traumatic events in their life, get PTSD. But by learning how to lucid dream and just becoming lucid once, oftentimes their nightmares cease. And if their nightmares cease, well, then they don't have to take drugs anymore. They don't have to drink themselves into a stupor anymore because, they're not going to have those nightmares anymore. So again, that's just the tip of the surface, because when you talk to other people, they've resolved phobias in lucid dreams. They've resolved obsessive compulsive disorders in lucid dreams. They've resolved panic attacks and anxiety in lucid dreams, and it's made profound impacts on their lives. So we're still kind of in the early stages here of all the incredible things that lucid dreaming can do.
It's so exciting to think about the level that we can get to. I don't even know if my head can wrap around that, just how deep this can go. It does just have profound impact. It reminds me a little bit of when you hear about athletes where they talk about running events in their mind. Like they'll stand and imagine certain things. And I mean, this is when they're conscious. This is even like a lucid dream. Corey Perry from the Edmonton Oilers, he will stand beside the rink and visualize the game before he goes to play the game. And he stands in the same place every single game, and he visualizes the scores and everything that he does. And I watch him every game during warm-up go through his routine and whatnot. And I mean, it's profound. I mean, he's done these incredible things through his career. He's won gold medals and the World Cup and all of these different things. And, you factor in this sort of lucid dream and the subconscious and where it can go. And it just makes you wonder, like, where can people get to? What level can we get to if we can accomplish these basic things through visualization? I mean, that's pretty profound.
Sometimes it bleeds over into waking life. For example, 10 years ago, one day in the middle of the afternoon, I was meditating. And so I got down deep, and it's hard to believe this next part, but I could feel my inner awareness there in the darkness of the waking meditation. And I knew I was sitting in my living room in my favorite chair meditating. And so I reached out to my larger awareness, and I always ask an open-ended question. And so I said, larger awareness, what do you have to say to me now? And it said, we want you to send $10,000 to your friend Paul back in your hometown. And I thought, what?
Are you nuts?
and I came out of the meditation and I thought, boy, that is really weird. My hometown is about 8 hours away, and I do have a friend Paul there, but boy, that was weird. The next day, I'm meditating again in the middle of the afternoon. I get down deep, and now I can feel my larger awareness and also the energy of my friend Paul's mother, who had passed away a few years earlier. And so I reach out again. I say, so inner awareness, what do you have to say to me? And this time it said, we want you to send $10,000 to your friend Paul back in your hometown. And I thought, holy crap. And I came out of the meditation. I told my wife, I go, look, if I ever had the same dream, on successive nights, I would try to do it, whatever it was, but this has happened twice in a meditative experience. And so I feel like, we need to make a response, and it's a fair amount of money. So I just wanted to talk to you about it. She goes, okay, let's send a note to our friend Paul, and we'll include a check for $1,000. And Paul, we're your good friends. If you need help, we'll help you. And I said, okay, well, great, we'll do that. So we put the check in the mail. 4 days later, the phone rings, and it's my friend Paul. And at first, I couldn't even understand what he was saying. He was so emotional. Mm. But he told me a week earlier, he had gone to his mom's gravesite, and he yelled at it. If someone didn't help him, he was going to kill himself. Wow. And I said, Paul, what's happening? And he said, you don't know this, but 3 months ago, my father fell in the bathroom and he broke his hip. And now he's in a nursing home where they say they're going to teach him how to walk again, but I know they'll never teach him how to walk again, and he'll never get out of this nursing home. And I said, okay, so what do you want $10,000 for? He said, I need $10,000 so I can build a handicap accessible bathroom in my house, and I'll have my father come live with me, and the state of Kansas will give 40 hours of nursing care a week. And I said, Paul, you're going to have your dad come live with you? And he goes, I have to. It's killing me. If I don't get my dad out of there, it'll just kill me. So he sent him all the money. He did it, and his dad came and lived with him for 6.5 years.
Wow.
It was the most profound experience. But the important thing is that this inner awareness, what's beautiful in a lucid dream, sometimes it's so profound. Like, for example, after my first book came out, is like 3 years later, I got an email from a young man who started it off, I'm a meth addict. Mm-hmm. And he said he read my book when he was in his second stint of drug rehabilitation out in California. And he said he read my book because he is so bored being there in drug rehab for 60 days or 90 days or whatever. He got really interested in this idea of interacting with an inner awareness in the lucid dream state. And so he started having lucid dreams. He began to ignore the dream figures and just ask a question, hey, dream, what do you have to show me? Just start out something simple like that. He said he began to interact with this inner awareness. And he said it kept going on and going on. And then one night he became lucid, and his inner awareness asked him, would you like to see what your life is going to be like if you continue using drugs? Oh. And he said, sure. Oh, he said for the next 10 minutes in his lucid dream, it was like watching a video of all the people he would hurt, all the damage he'd do to his body, all the kind of mayhem that he would cause for others. He said it was so impactful that when he woke up from that lucid dream, he decided he was going to go cold turkey and give up drugs. Wow. And he wrote me after he graduated from community college, because he promised himself that he would write to me when he got his community college degree, because that would take him 2 years of being off drugs and mm-hmm. would really show that he had made it. But he shared some of the other examples of his interactions with his larger awareness, and they were stunning. They were just such beautiful and compassionate, insightful assistance and help and all. But the important thing to think of is that all of us have that within us. It's just we get so focused on this outer world that we forget to look inside, and we've totally ignored dreams and impulses and synchronicities. They're just stupid. They're just coincidence and all that kind of stuff. It's like all the communication that we're getting from this inner world, we do our best to ignore. And so it's not surprising that for many of us, this just seems like an impossibility. But I'm telling folks that in your lucid dreams, you can ignore the dream figures, reach out to your inner awareness, and begin to create this new type of communication and engagement with your own inner resources.
I must be really thick because it took me until this moment to realize that Scrooge's A Christmas Carol is exactly about this.
Yes.
Isn't that true? It's very much a lucid dream, like show me the future and all. And it's shocking. It is shocking. I create this online magazine called Lucid Dreaming Experience.
Which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
About a year ago, we had a special issue on people who'd used lucid dreaming for healing, either emotional healing or physical healing. And this one person wrote what happened to him. He said, in the middle of the night, he saw his wife's deceased father. And he thought, wait a second, he passed away 15 years ago or something. And so he became lucid and he went flying around and having fun. But then he had this inner compulsion that he needed to send healing energy to his wife. And so in the lucid dream, he just spends the rest of the lucid dream sending healing energy to his wife, who's actually sleeping right next to him in the bed there. And so he wakes up in the morning and he asks his wife, did you have any interesting dreams last night? She says, no, I don't remember them. And he goes, do you feel better? Or, and she says, no, I feel the same as I always feel. Anyway, that happens. And then about 7 hours later, the phone rings and it's his wife. And she's yelling, I don't have cancer. I don't have cancer. And the husband says, what are you talking about? And she said, I didn't want to tell you, but I've had this suspicion that I had cancer. And so I persuaded the doctor to do a scan to confirm that, yes, and I did indeed have cancer. But the doctor did the scan and told me that I'm completely cancer-free. And the guy said, do you remember that lucid dream I had this morning where I was sending you all this healing energy? And she goes, oh yeah. but it's kind of like jumping into a different probable reality by doing something in the dream state that now you're now moving down a different line of probabilities. But again, it's amazing what can happen. And lucid dreaming does give you a way, though, to kind of step outside the boundaries of the waking world and kind of look at the past and future and the dream state in a whole new way.
Well, this has been absolutely phenomenal. And I am so happy that we had this conversation today because I have learned a ridiculous amount of things that I now want to go and implement, which is really exciting. I love when I discover new avenues to all of this. It's so cool. Robert, where can people find you and get your book so that they can join in on this journey too?
So you can always check out my website, Lucid, Lucid, lucidadvice.com. And there you can see my books. My first book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, which is kind of about how I learned how deep lucid dreaming was. And you get into these areas like interacting with deceased dream figures and all. And then I have a second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, with my co-author, Carolyn McCready. And there, that book is all about the techniques, how to stabilize the lucid dream. So you have a nice long lucid dream, a stable lucid dream. And also it shows to how to interact and engage with dream figures and other things, so that you can use lucid dreaming for the purposes that you want to. So those are probably the best ways to do it. Also, occasionally you'll see that I'm putting on online workshops and things like that, and have a lot of fun with all of that.
Thank you so much for all of this. This has been amazing, and I hope at some point we can have you back because you're just so full of information, and I know for sure that our listeners are going to be all over this. So thank you again so much for doing this with us today.
Thanks. It's been so much fun.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
As I expected, we had a great conversation with Mr. Waggoner. Oh my goodness.
Okay, that was incredible. And
Yeah.
my mind is still spinning. This is so interesting to me. And what really caught my attention was that I think the way I always viewed it was that it was about dreaming and recognizing that you were in a dream. And I wasn't connecting the idea that this was tapping into something else. This was not just a matter of
consciousness again.
It's about consciousness, which I think is phenomenal. And I'm loving this idea specifically about animals. Or that part of the conversation for me was very, very intriguing. The idea that other beings, animals, wherever these lucid dreams are taking us, is taking us into something, a connection that other beings are using. And that to me was really, really fascinating. The fact that he was able to interact with his cat, you know, when he would come out of this dream and the cat was exactly where it was in the dream. And then the technique that the cat would teach him was working. To me, it just tells me that there is something else going on there. Like there's a frequency that other beings seem to be using. At least that's what I took away from it, that we can tap into.
I mentioned Rupert Sheldrake while we were conversing, and the name of the book escaped me. And it was Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. It's like you say, we're able to communicate with our animals in ways, and they can communicate with us in ways that maybe in our waking life isn't very clear. But it's so interesting that Robert talked about his cat communicating with him in dreaming, and then he was able to apply what the cat had taught him during the dream to waking life, and it actually made a difference.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big deal.
Yes,
and it's a big deal. And I'm not entirely sure that even research today, apart from Robert's, has truly made that connection. You know,
well, like Robert, Stephen LaBerge, the lucid dreaming investigator who he mentioned, both of those guys are the dudes that everybody is looking at. There are others around them too, but yeah, there's still so much exploration to be done in this realm of 8 hours a night, every night that we're supposed to be resting. We're actually traveling and going places and doing things, and maybe we can make better use of that time in ways that are beneficial to us rather than just rejuvenative sleep.
Exactly. And I'm one of these people that I most of the time forget my dreams, but if I remember a dream, it's really clear and there's always a message attached to it every time. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a lucid dream in the sense that I'm, I can look at my hands and go, oh, I'm dreaming. But there's definitely stuff that comes through for me. And often it's after, if I go to bed and have a meditation session before bed, that will often set me up for it. And it's not every night by any means, but I've had a number of those experiences where I've woken up and I've gone, okay, I've just had some sort of information imparted on me. And when I go and look it up and research it, it's usually dead on. So it's coming from somewhere.
So dream recall is actually one of the first steps in learning to lucid dream. It is learning to recall your dreams, because we're not set up to remember our dreams. Some researchers believe that changing levels of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and norepinephrine, oh boy, are what cause us to forget our dreams. However, we can train our brains to remember our dreams. And the way that I've been doing it is I have a dream journal. I have a piece of like a notebook and a pen, but also my phone. I have a dream journal on my phone. Whatever's closest to me, that's what I grab first. As soon as I am realizing that I'm waking up, I think, what was I just doing? What was I just doing? And sometimes, more often than not, now I am able to remember what that was. And that's part of leaning into lucid dreaming. There's a whole big thing on how to do it. And Robert's books are great to lead you down that lane. If you want to learn more about him, lucidadvice.com. You can learn more about his books there. But the one that I remember is the most poignant to me is Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple. And that's written by Robert and his co-author, Carolyn McCready. They talk about how to train yourself to remember your dreams, look for signs that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, and hopefully lucid dream.
I think it's so exciting, and it's something that everybody can do, which I think is really cool. You know, sometimes we talk about places that maybe not everybody can go to, or, you know, techniques that have been done decades ago or require this or that. But this is something that everybody can start doing, and which is really exciting to me, because it's not something that you have to be super talented in one specific area or have a specific piece of equipment. This is just about, it's similar to meditation. This is just about expanding and tapping into something that's there, that's accessible to everybody. And the fact that he's got so much information out there that people can just latch onto and learn and do their own personal study on this is so cool. It reminds me a little bit of some of the things that Robert Monroe is doing with the Monroe Institute. And some of their programs, the Gateway Experience and things like that, where people were able to begin to learn to have out-of-body experiences and things like that. And here's like this other way, I think even maybe a simpler way of accessing some of that connection with all that is.
I'm so happy we get to talk to him. I'm so happy.
Oh, me too. And I can't wait to have him back, because I know there's more, and I have more questions. Thank you very much. I am not done.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this sleepy expedition, dear listeners.
And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. All is consciousness, and maybe a dream. Until next time.
Honk shoo.
Stay curious, friends.
Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker Paranormal Research and Teachings and Good Egg Studios. This podcast is part of the Curious Cast podcast network. Theme music by Corey Johnson of Catalyst Records in Edmonton, Alberta. You can learn more about Morgan Knudsen at entityseeker.ca and learn more about me, Mike Brown, and listen to my show, Dark Poutine, at darkpoutine.com. Feel free to email the show at supernaturalcircumstances@gmail.com.
Daniel Blanchard is no ordinary thief. His heists are ingenious. His escapes defy belief. And when he sees the dazzling diamond CC Star, he'll risk everything to steal it. His exploits set off an intercontinental manhunt. But how long can CC Star stay lucky for Daniel? I'm Seren Jones, and this is a most audacious heist. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.